Hey there, book lovers. I'm Haley.
And I'm McCayleigh. Welcome to Two Chicks and a Plot Twist,
The official podcast for the Facebook group, All Things Book Related.
We're two besties who are here to share our love for unforgettable characters, unpredictable storylines, and the books we just can't put down.
From our all-time favorites to the latest releases, we're bringing you deep dives, hot takes, and maybe a little friendly disagreement.
So grab your favorite read and let's get ready for some bookish fun.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Two Chicks and a Plot Twist. We are so happy that you're here with us today. We have got a super fun episode planned for you guys.
Yes, that's right. It's time for a Throne of Glass series breakdown. We're diving headfirst and talking about all the highs, the lows, and everything in between.
So if you haven't read these books, you may want to skip out on this episode and join us next week because this episode's going to be filled with spoilers. And a heads up, guys, we're also going to do a little theory section that may bring in other books of her series. Yes. But we'll say beforehand, this is a spoiler for this book also. But if you haven't read Throne of Glass, you definitely want to skip out on this one.
Yes, and because we love all the chaos, we're adding a little what if section to the mix. Like, what if this character died? And we're just gonna kind of let our imaginations run wild.
It is going to be emotional, dramatic, and probably a little messy, but we are ready for it. So grab your favorite SJM book and let's settle in. This is gonna be a fun one.
All right, let's get started. So Haley, where do we even begin?
This is so hard, guys, because this breakdown was going to be a breakdown of all three of her books, and I made notes for it, and my notes were 10 pages long, and I hadn't even gotten into Crescent City. I did ACOTAR, half of it and half of Throne of Glass, and I texted McCayleigh. I said, this needs to be made into 3 episodes because otherwise it's going to be a 3-hour long episode, and I don't want to cut anything.
Yes, there's so much. Ugh.
Maybe we should start with how we read the Massiverse. What series did you start with?
Yeah, so for me, I began with ACOTAR, and I only started that because TikTok told me to. So I was like, right. Oh, okay, and I'm glad I did because the world building in Throne of Glass is so crazy huge, and there's so many plot points that you have to hit, and I hadn't read a book like this in a very long time, so I was glad with how I did it. And then I'm a firm believer that Assassin's Blade must be read before Heir of Fire, so more on that later. But what about you? What was your reading order?
I read it a little differently. So I started with Throne of Glass first, and well, like McCayleigh said, we'll get into a little debate about how you're supposed to read it. I know everyone has their own strong opinions, but we'll tell y'all ours. I think that if you are super into fantasy, most of the time you start with Throne of Glass because it's heavy on the world building. There's a lot of different point of views and different characters going on. And if you haven't read a lot of fantasy, I've seen most people read ACOTAR because that one is basically a romantic fantasy where romance comes first. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Throne of Glass is fantasy and romance comes second. So I did Throne of Glass, ACOTAR, and then Crescent City. Crescent City has a multiverse, so you definitely want to start that one last after you've read the first 2 series.
Yeah, just the whole SJM world is so
It's
crazy.
A lot to juggle. Yeah.
It's literally Marvel Universe, but for books. It
really is.
And they're not superheroes, they're fae. Yeah. I love it.
It's just better.
Yes, for real. And so we also did a poll, you guys, about how you all read the SJM world. So we're going to check these answers out here in just a minute.
So we threw up a couple questions about it. So the first one that we have is, which series did you start with first? We had so many votes on this one. Over 62% of people said they started with ACOTAR first, so the Court of Thorns and Roses. 31% Throne of Glass, and then one person said Crescent City, which...
You're crazy for that. That's
going bold. So out of order.
That is so bold, but good for you.
I wonder who it was. Does it say?
Move against the grain. That is a choice.
They started with Crescent City.
Wow.
Y'all gonna get confused real fast. That's all I'll say.
That is crazy. Wow. Okay.
So, McCayleigh, what is your favorite series from SJM?
Oh my gosh. Well, while Kingdom of Ash is probably my favorite book of all time, just because I had to, like, process everything. Like, it was actually, like, a movie in my brain. That was insane. I do think that ACOTAR is my favorite, like, one, because it's the series that got me into reading, and it was easy for me to, like, understand, and I did love the romance aspect in it, and I've never been one to, like, read books without romance, so or watch movies even. Like, if there was no love interest, then it's not for me. So, like, that's why Hunger Games worked for me, and, you know, all this other, you know, anything else. So yeah, ACOTAR for me. But what about you?
Throne of Glass, I have said it a million times. I collect all of the original covers. They are behind me, if y'all can see. I am collecting the paperbacks and the hardcovers, and my bank account is crying because those books are like $100 a piece now. People are selling them for so much money. I am not paying that, putting that out there. I have gotten all of mine from, like, half price books. I found a girl selling some on Facebook for like $20. I'm like, girl, you do not know what you have. Like, people would pay $100 for this. But I am so beyond excited for this episode. I have been wanting to do it for so long. I read this series over 2 years ago, so I tried looking a bunch of stuff up. Like, I went on, like, a Reddit rabbit hole trying to remember everything. So if there's anything that I miss, just bear with me. I'm wanting to reread it this year, so hopefully I'll have time to do that.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern, is, like, getting all the facts straight. So I'm in the same boat. I love reminiscing about the main plot points in the whole series. I might get some wrong. You know, I might get a few names wrong, but overall, it's still the same series we all know and love. So, yeah, we also asked our followers what your favorite SJM series was. So for that, we had majority everyone pick Throne of Glass. That was at 69%, and then second was A Court of Thorns and Roses, and no one voted for Crescent City. Yeah, so sad. I mean, Throne of Glass and Court of Thorns and Roses, those are hard to beat. Oh, sorry, Crescent City, you're kind of on the back burner, but it's okay. Okay, so you want to go ahead and get into our Throne of Glass breakdown, Haley?
Yes, so the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas is an epic fantasy adventure that follows Selena Sardothien, a badass assassin with a mysterious past. It all starts with her being dragged out of a brutal prison and given a shot at freedom, if she can win a deadly competition to become the king's champion.
Things aren't as simple as they seem. As Selena competes, she uncovers dark secrets in the castle, dangerous magic, and her own hidden identity. She's actually Alyn Galathynius, the rightful queen of Terrasen, and she's destined to take back her kingdom and fight a growing evil.
Over the series, Alyn builds a team of unforgettable allies, including a fierce fae warrior. Hello, Rowan, my boyfriend, I love ya. A snarky witch, and even a prince, all while facing off against ruthless enemies and ancient villains. It's a story packed with action, romance, twists, and epic battles, but at its heart, it's about Alyn's fight for freedom, her people, and her own place in the world.
Love it.
So good.
Such a great series.
It's so hard to make a summary for a 7-book series, but that's our overall. So let's get into, how did you read this series? There's so much controversy of people saying they're right. What did you do?
Yeah, so for me, I mentioned a little bit ago that I believe Assassin's Blade should be read right before Heir of Fire, so as book 3. But I read it as the 4th book, so I read Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, Assassin's Blade. But what I wish I had done was read Assassin's Blade before Heir of Fire, because I felt like it would have been a perfect transition from, we're over here in Aderlin, right? Isn't that the name? Mm-hmm. Aderlin. Yeah. And then she goes off and meets Rowan. So, like, it was a perfect, like, cutscene, you know, like, oh, let's do the backstory, and now let's go meet all these people. So that's how I wish I would have done it. And then I tandem read Empire of Storms. right? And then Tower of Dawn. So, and I checked her website, and like it was 11 months ago that I could see the updates on her website, because I originally checked her website when I first started reading A Court of Thorns and Roses, and then she updated the website after I was done reading all her books. Now she says her preferred way is to read Assassin's Blade before Heir of Fire or something, and I was like, oh, good to know now after I finished the series, because I didn't do that. But that's what I had wished I had done. But what about you?
I did it the same way. Started with Throne of Glass, which is the correct way to read it per the Queen, SJM herself.
Yes.
I read Assassin's Blade after Heir of Fire, and I personally liked it that way. If I was to do a reread, I would do it that way again, probably. But when it comes to the tandem read of Empire Storm and Tower of Dawn, I did not tandem read, because I was like, I am not going to hold 2 books everywhere I go. I'm going to read one at a time. And it was okay. We'll get into Tower of Dawn later, and you'll know all of my thoughts about it. But, when I reread it, I will do the tandem read.
Yes. So now we're going to take a look at how our followers read Throne of Glass. You guys were so responsive and interactive, and just showed us so much engagement. We loved it.
So mostly everyone said that they read Throne of Glass first.
Good.
83% said that they read Throne of Glass. 17% said they did Assassin's Blade first.
Good.
I don't know, there's so much controversy about it, but for me, I'm like, why don't you just read it the way the author intended? Because, I don't know. Reading Assassin's Blade first, you get all the spoilers of what happened to Sam, how did Selena become the powerful woman she is today, and everything like that. So,
yeah.
I don't know, y'all.
Yeah, I was worried, because I knew this book had a lot of world building with it. So, I mean, I didn't even know the reading order. Like, I just read Throne of Glass first before I even researched anything. And I'm glad it happened that way, because I didn't have to decide, if I should read Assassin's Blade first or anything. But, I mean, for me, like, a lot of people will say they won't be able to understand a book without first knowing the backstories. But for me, I feel like if I did it, I feel like anyone can do it, because there's like so much, it's a surprise. It's worth waiting to find out all of these characters' backstories. It really added to the suspense of the whole plot.
Yeah. And it's nice not knowing everything.
Yes.
And wondering, what happened to this character? What happened to Sam? How did she get to Andover in the first place? That's the salt mine she was at. So I like the suspense.
Me too. And I feel like the first 2 books, well, especially the first book, is just so different than where the whole rest of the series, like where the direction of it goes, the whole plot. Like, you first think, this is Hunger Games. And then by the second book, it's like, wait, we're starting to turn a different direction. And like, it ends up being, you're saving the world now.
Yeah. And another thing is the writing style of Throne of Glass compared to like Kingdom of Ash is so different. And the reason why is because Sarah J. Maas wrote this so long ago.
Yeah.
And she's had all these ideas in her mind. And so her writing style just changed as she got more mature and she evolved. So
I think it's so neat to read something like that. She wrote it young. She was a teenager, I think, right?
Yeah. I think so.
So that's cool to see how writing evolves, and her ideas clearly evolved too, and they just kept growing and growing. And she definitely portrayed that. So
I don't know how she kept all of these ideas in her mind, like for Throne of Glass, for ACOTAR, and for Crescent City. We'll get into theories, but the way she connects everything, I guess I could say, is mind-blowing. I don't know how. My brain would just melt. My brain could not handle that.
Like, we've obviously seen like Marvel do this connection with, their universes. Yeah. But I wonder, is Sarah J. Maas the first book author to do this with books, or is she just the most popular? Because I haven't seen anyone else do it, and it's probably because it's not popular.
Either. Yeah.
But I want to know, and I'm going to research that later. I'm going to find other book series like actual series, not the same, A Court of Thorns and Roses. No, it's got to be like A Court of Thorns and Roses, Throne of Glass, Crescent City, and they're all tying in. I want to find something else like that because I was a sucker for that. I loved like the little Easter eggs and all of it.
Yeah, me too.
I could go on, but we have the whole episode to record, so I won't.
What were your 2 favorite books from this series?
Yeah, so for me, definitely Kingdom of Ash, and without a question, and then Empire of Storms, just because it's revealed that Aelin has secretly been working behind, like, the
everyone's backs,
and just not been sharing. Like, even us as the readers, we're like, girl, what have you been doing? Like, why didn't you tell me? I'm reading your book. like, no, she didn't tell her friends or, the audience. But yeah, she's like over here forming a whole army secretly, and Galyn,
oh my gosh,
Ash River,
like
Ilias, all those people. But what were you saying?
Like when Aiden was like, "Where are armies, Aelin, that you told us you were having?" I wanted to punch him in the face.
I know.
And then she came through. Aiden, you drive me crazy.
He gives little brother energy. Like,
yeah, for
all
sure.
the time,
I agree.
Which, I mean, I think is his purpose and intent, and like why he exists in this whole series. But I'm like, bro, come on.
Aiden.
But that, and then I just love that in Empire of Storms. Like, I wish we had seen Rowan and Aelin get married, but this is when it's announced that they just secretly ran off and got married. I hate that everything was a secret. Yes. Ugh. There is just so much buildup, and I love that this is the pirate book. This is where we see from Assassin's Blade. This is that story. The pirate and the assassin. Lysandra pretending to be Alyn was just like,
oh my gosh,
cool.
In front of Rolf. What's his name?
Rolf.
Yeah. In front of him, and then Aelin comes in. He's like, bro, what's going on?
Loved it. I'm like, just think how cool. Like, look at me, I'm a shapeshifter. I can be anyone and anything. But so neat. But what about you? What are your 2 favorite books in the series?
They're so good. I'm so torn. I also love Kingdom of Ash. The last book kind of wraps everything up in a beautiful bow, and Aelin gets her happily ever after she's endured so many horrible things in her life. And I also love Queen of Shadows. So I'll let y'all in on a little tidbit about me. When Manon was first introduced in Heir of Fire, was it Heir of Fire? I think so. I read her chapter and I said, who the heck is this witch? I skipped all of her chapters. I don't know why. I was like, she is not Aelin. She is not important to me. I would skip all of her chapters until Aelin and Manon fought each other. And I was like, oh crap, she's actually important.
My God.
I was like, I had to go back and reread all of Manon's chapters from Heir of Fire. But now she's one of my favorite characters. I don't know why I did that, but like me 2 years ago was like, this girl sucks. I hate her. She's taking away from my story.
I understand.
Yeah, and Queen of Shadows is one of my favorites because Manon just has so much strength over the Iron Teeth witches. In this book, she is writing on the wall about Dorian, saying that he's still inside of himself. And I love how Manon's and Dorian's relationship progresses, and I love that, Manon is joining Aelin's little ragtag team of misfits and going to save the world.
Yeah, I think all that was so powerful, like them fighting for the first time, and then like her, being captured kind of by them, like after she leaves for help. Oh,
so good.
Anyways, but what about your favorite characters? Can you pick 3 favorite characters from Throne of Glass?
This is so hard. Manon, obviously, like I just said, I love her so much. She's so strong. Also, Dorian, I've loved him since the very first book. He has evolved so much from being the prince into being this immortal being he is now. I think he's immortal. I'm hoping he's immortal. If not, I'm gonna die.
Riot.
But into being this new man and having all these other responsibilities and understanding what's going on in his kingdom. And also Aelin, of course, our queen. Yes. Love her.
Yeah, same for me in terms of like Aelin. I mean, how can you not? She's like our main girl, like boss babe. And then I was like, let me pick unconventional characters. So like I chose Mort, the freaking doorknob or whatever.
My gosh. Mort, I love him.
Like he should still be alive, right? Like only the last
I'm
part
like,
of the
where is
castle
he?
fell. Like, and that's what I'm saying too. Like the first book in Throne of Glass was like totally different like than the rest of the series because everything was taking place in the castle, and then she's never in the castle really again. So we missed out on Mort and
I love
all these
Mort.
other things.
I don't know. Have you ever seen Alice in Wonderland, like the animated
That's
one?
what I think of.
Yes, when I would read it, I was like, yeah, this is that talking door.
Yes, no, I loved that. And then not so much like one character, but I chose the 13 as a whole.
Yes. Oh,
God,
my heart breaks.
It hurts to think about like their sacrifice for Manon and Abraxos. It just makes me want to cry. Like I actually read that in the book and I just like bawled. Like you just hate the bad guys so much after that. Like what a great way to hate someone even more is to kill off these wonderful people.
And also like Asterin, she was a part of the 13. Yeah. Her story made me cry. So
Isn't
her story
so sad.
Her being with this human guy and she had a baby and the baby was stillborn and they took the baby away from her. She didn't even get to hold it. And then she never went back and visited her human guy in the woods. And she would just fly over and he just aged and didn't take on like a wife or anything. And she was like, every time I would fly over, it's like he was looking for someone or missing out on someone. I just cried. It was so sad.
That is so sad. Sarah J. Maas, what happened to you, girl? What's your trauma? Please let it out.
My gosh.
Just writing it through your characters, like, ugh. It hurts. But anyways, let's get into theories. Now, this is fun.
I've got so many. There's so many. Yes. I had to cut out so much. What was your first one that you got?
Well, I have questions rather than explaining the theories themselves, but like, this one I've thought about a lot. But in Crescent City, we learned that their rulers are just not so much deities, but they're just beings of another realm with immense power. And a spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Crescent City spoiler alert.
Crescent City spoiler alert. So anyways, we learned that these rulers in Crescent City are, not really who they say they are and are using them. And I'm like wondering, do we think these Throne of Glass guys are truly deities? I don't know. Or like who, like the Vogue, could they be, kind of the same too? Like I wonder how much is actually a crossover, and will Sarah J. Maas ever tell us? Or is she just going to leave us wondering for the rest of our lives? But yeah, and like the word keys about, how the gates tie into the multiverse theory, which I think is obvious now that we've read, Kingdom of Ash. But yeah, there's just so much and it makes my brain hurt if I think about it too much. But tell me yours.
Let me see. I have so many. So this is going to be a spoiler for ACOTAR. My favorite Throne of Glass theory is that Kaltain, she is first introduced in the very first Throne of Glass book. She's kind of like this rich, lavish girl who we don't really give a second thought about. She's kind of annoying. But some people say that she's actually, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it wrong, the Suriel from ACOTAR. I love this theory so much because I love Kaltain's character as she evolves throughout the Throne of Glass series. And I love the Suriel. Kaltain really, she held on to that small piece of Aelyn's cloak that Aelyn gave her through the darkness and the trials and tribulations she faced under Erwan's control. And that cloak of Aelyn's really kept her humanity intact. So I think that before Kaltain was a slave to Erwan, she, like I said, was the drama at the castle with Alyn and Dorian. So we know in ACOTAR that the Suriel was kind of drama whenever he told Feyre stay with the High Lord? And she's like, which one? And then Rhys gets shot, and he's like, your mate. So the serial loves drama. We also know that the serial preferred forms of payments in cloaks, and they liked nice ones, which, like I said, Kaltain did live that rich, lavish life before Erewhon. That's all I'll say. I think it makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, that's so interesting. And I've always seen like the Suriel as like male, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that would be so cool. And what a cool way to tie that in.
Yeah. And then my final thing about this one, the Suriel's last plea to Feyre before the serial dies is to leave the world a better place than she found it in, which really further adds to this theory because Aelin says this multiple times throughout the Throne of Glass series to convince people to join her in the war.
Never caught on to that. What?
Our minds are blown. It makes you think about so many things.
Yeah.
But I think that this may be a theory that Sarah J. Maas just may never go more detail into, and I think she's just left these breadcrumbs for us to pick up. I don't think she'll add anything else to it since both characters are dead, but that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, that's insane. And I mean, she's just gonna leave it up for discussion, like, for all the readers, which sucks, because I'm like, only you will know. Like, crazy. If we could sit in a room with you for an hour, I'd ask so many questions.
I know, right? But what's your next one?
Yeah, so for me, with Throne of Glass, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and Crescent City, spoiler alert, since they all are potentially existing in the same universe, could Aelyn's jump through all the worlds in Kingdom of Ash hint at her meeting Feyre, Rhys, and Bryce someday? Because we've got Feyre and Bryce, you know, like, or at least... Yeah, Feyre was in that book. They're all meeting, but like, what about our girl Aelyn? Like, we've already got she's like Easter egg falling, you know, through the
falling
sky.
Through the worlds.
So I'm just like, surely Aelyn has to show up at some point, or be an Easter egg in, you know, maybe the new ACOTAR book or something.
City,
or Crescent City. So I'm interested in seeing that, and if Sarah J. Maas even wants to touch that anymore, or if she's like, no, I'm done, it's perfect. You know? So.
Yeah, I think that the way Aelyn left off with Rowan in the Kingdom of Ash series was so beautifully written, and she finally has her happy ending. So maybe SJM just doesn't want to disturb Aelyn.
Yeah.
And also, Aelyn in the last book doesn't have any more powers. So who knows? But I would love to see her again, even though it would probably break my heart that she doesn't have any powers now, and she's probably got kids now, all these things with Rowans, but I would love to have her be introduced again.
Dang.
I mean, we definitely know that she can, since we did see her jump through Prythian in the Night Court, where she saw Rhys and Feyre together, and then she fell through the Crescent City world, where there were skyscrapers and lights and all this thing. So, who knows? Hopefully we'll hear.
Yeah, but what about any others that you might have? Can you think of any?
I have got so many, guys.
Oh, well, I guess you did say that.
So, here is another spoiler for Crescent City. Crescent City really is the main spoiler for most theories that I've seen, because Crescent City really ties everything together. But some people believe that Lydia from Crescent City possesses Rowan's ruby ring from Throne of Glass. So Rowan's ring was a symbol of his bond with Aelin. People are wondering if it made its way into Lydia's possession through mysterious means. Maybe this may hint that Throne of Glass happened in the past, and maybe they're able to time jump. Maybe that's what happened with Alyn. I don't know. Just the way the ring was described in Crescent City sounded a lot like the ring Rowan wore with Alyn. So who knows? Maybe, you know, Lydia is a relative of theirs and it was passed down through generations, or intentionally given to Lydia, which links her to the Throne of Glass series. And here's a couple things to add to this theory. Lydia has shape-shifting powers that we know of, and she also named her son Brannon connecting her to the stag shifters in Throne of Glass. So the ring is more breadcrumbs, I think, for us to pick up on.
Interesting.
Who knows?
Yeah, no, that's so cool. And like something that kind of interests me too is like when you say if the times like aren't aligning, that is crazy. I'm trying to wrap my brain around how are the times not on the same timeline?
Like
because you're, you know, going through the worlds, but if they were the same, then wouldn't Throne of Glass be just as high tech as Crescent City? But it's not.
Exactly. That's my thoughts. Those are my thoughts also, which makes me think there's this piece of artwork, fan artwork that's floating around, and it's all of the worlds stacked on top of one another to kind of symbolize when Alyn fell through all the worlds. And people are saying that they're all happening at the same time. Well, I'm thinking it happened in the past, because wouldn't Throne of Glass be as technological advanced as Crescent City?
Or at least
same
close
thing with ACOTAR. Exactly.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe it is in the past and Aelin fell through the past.
Yeah, I mean, logically speaking, if you're around just as long as, you know, Crescent City, you'd have something high tech, because right now they are truly medieval. Like, same thing with, you know, Feyre's, Prythian and everything. But, like, Throne of Glass, definitely. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I love that theory. That's a good theory. That gets you thinking.
It does. It makes your brain hurt a little bit. Because I'm like, I've been thinking for too long.
Yes, so that's why we're moving on.
Let's go. So, this is our controversial question, because McCayleigh and I have totally different thoughts about this. So, McCayleigh, how did Kale's arc in Tower of Dawn change your opinion of him?
Yeah, so, I understand why Kale gets a lot of hate. And to me, like, I never really understood why he was hated until I started looking at social media. And in hindsight, after finishing the series, I'm like, okay, so this guy might have been a walking red flag. Like, in terms of dating, I would not want to date this man who only likes this one part of me, you know, and can't imagine being and dealing with this other side of me. Like, either love all of me or not at all. So, I think Kale gets a lot of hate for that. For sure, which is totally understandable. I can agree with that. I am glad he's not as bad as Tamlin, because in terms of like what Tamlin did, like Tamlin actually did something mean. Kale never did. It's just his personality, like, and he just ends up kind of like being disliked a little bit. But Tamlin actually like, oh, let me give everyone a reason to hate me. So there's a difference there. So Kale never actually intends to hurt anyone, but it ends up kind of happening. So yeah, I never really hated him. I just never cared for him too much. I mean, even between when Celaena was like kind of dating both of them at different times. Yeah. She's not playing them, you know, but I was like, oh, go for the prince, baby girl. Like, get that money, get that bag. That was my take. So, like, Kale was always kind of second to Dorian to me, just because he was a guard and not a prince. I don't know what that says about me, but anyways, your turn. What about you? What's your take?
So many thoughts about Kale as a character. Tower of Dawn really just feels like a fever dream to me, and I can't remember much from it. I just know that Kale was able to walk again. Yay. I think that he is an interesting character, but I think it took him too long to take responsibility for his actions. And by the time I had read Tower of Dawn, I had already written him off. And honestly, I've just never been a huge fan of Kale. Tower of Dawn did a decent job of giving him depth, and he had a good journey, honestly, of healing and self-discovery in Tower of Dawn. But like I said, why does it take you so long to be good and be nice? And one thing that really just made me dislike him was when Celaena and him were dating. And he knew Celaena was an assassin. He got her from Endover to be the king's champion. He knew who she was. And he got so judgy when she started doing her job for the king that she was the champion for. I'm like, that's her job. He was so horrible, and I just could not get over him. So while Tower of Dawn did make him a little bit more tolerable, it just didn't win me over. One thing that Dorian says to Kale when Kale is expressing that he doesn't like Celaena's job as an assassin, Dorian says you have to love all of her. You can't just pick and choose which parts of Celaena you love. You have to love her as a whole or don't love her at all. So I love that.
My baby prince.
Right?
I love him.
Yes.
Green flag, red flag. Like,
oh my gosh, literally.
they're two besties, but they got different flags.
Yeah.
Love my Dorian. And then I agree. Tower Dawn, I think it came too late in the series. And I wonder, like, what purpose? I mean, obviously, I feel like Kale had such a horrible attitude. In the beginning of the book, like, bro just lost, way of walking, stuck in a wheelchair, and it's just horrible attitude and hates getting help, I think, right? Or am I making that up? Didn't he hate all of this and, like, hard to deal with? He hated
going there,
It made me mad.
He's so whiny. Don't be so whiny.
Bro, these people are trying to help you, and, like, he has an issue with everything, so that was frustrating. Yeah. But I'm glad that he kind of ended up with the girl, what's her name? The girl, Elite? No. Elite is the witch.
It's like on the
healer.
Tip of my tongue.
She's the healer. Irene.
Westfall.
Irene. Yeah. So,
I love Westfall. Irene, I think you are too good for him. You could do better, girlfriend.
Girl. But, yeah. So I'm, like, wondering what pushed Miss Sarah, Queen Sarah, to write this book. Was it specifically because she found out everyone hated Kale? Or just needed a way to tie in Irene into the picture?
I don't know. Here's the thing. Imagine if we read these books when they were coming out. Mm-hmm. So imagine we just finished Empire Storms, finishing off with Rowan saying, "Where's my wife? Where's my wife?" Aelin is taken away. We wait for a year for us to find out what's happened to Aelin, and we get knocked in the face with a whole book about Kale. I think that would make me hate him even more. I would be even more mad about it.
Wow, no, that's a good point. Dude, that would be horrible. Okay, I'm glad we discovered this series after the fact, because...
Right, exactly.
I could never. Oh my god. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about our girl Manon.
Yes.
She, like, what role does she play in, like, this story, and how does her perspective enrich the series? Because we discussed, she does come in a little later, and we're like, who is this chick? And so, like, what do you think? Like, what's your take on this?
She is such a crucial role in the Throne of Glass series. She starts off as this ruthless ruler of the Iron Teeth Witches, but she, like, goes throughout the series to become, a part of Aelyn's little group. She is an antagonist to one of the most powerful women in this series. She has such a beautiful experience with the 13, so we get to see a much more emotional side of her, and she's just so vital. Her and the 13 are so vital to fight Erewhon and to fight Maeve. I think that she has such an interesting perspective on the human world and also the Fae world. It just adds a lot more depth into the series and into the world building to kind of get her perspective. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
So pretty much the same thing. We love our girl Manon. She really resembles like a unifier and just such a transformative force. And her journey from becoming just this witch to the queen of the wastes, it just symbolizes so much power of choice and redemption. Her, what was it, her grandma? It was her grandma who was this horrible leader of the actual coven of the witches. And when she finally stands up for herself, I'm like, you go, girl. I love you. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of people can kind of resonate with that. I mean, she was raised to be bad. And imagine just growing up one way and then all of a sudden having to fight your morals, which are bad to us. But all of a sudden it's okay, wait, what's important to me? And then having to go against everything you've ever known. It's just so crazy. And I just really think she adds all this moral ambiguity and expanding all this world building. And she really parallels Aelyn's journey so well of self-discovery in just a different way. I could go on. The 13 and Dorian and Manon's little love story is like perfect enemies to lovers. When you had mentioned she's chained up or whatever, and they kind of hang out for the first time, and what was it,
Yeah.
a ship? It was like the bottom of the
Yeah.
ship, and
Yeah. Yep.
when they meet, I'm like, oh, the way they talk to each other, I'm like, yeah, beat each
Yeah.
other up. Like, but I love them. But yeah, her whole story, it just highlights themes of loyalty, found family, breaking free from toxic legacies, and it just makes her arc way more dynamic than a lot of these characters, and I just think she's so impactful. But yeah, so if you could step into the shoes of one character, who would it be?
It has to be Manon. I could never be Manon because she is such like a badass girl, and that is so not me at all.
Oh
but stepping into her shoes would be such a powerful experience. Manon is fiercely loyal, and she's got wonderful leadership skills, and she has, like McCayleigh was saying, she broke free from the toxic legacies. So ability to grow from her past into the woman that she is now would be so cool to kind of witness firsthand. Also be with Dorian. Yes, please.
Yes, please. I love that.
You.
Yeah, so when I was looking through our notes, I was like, she's a liar. She would not choose Manon. But I know our Miss Haley over here is Aelin obsessed, so she's a liar.
Didn't want to pick like the main character. I wanted to be unique and pick someone else.
I know what you were doing. I knew exactly what you were doing. But Haley, if she had to choose, she would pick Alyn. So
yeah,
because of that, I chose Alyn. I was like, Alyn is, I would be nothing like her.
Yeah,
I don't think I'll ever be anything like her, but same, reasons as you would choose Manon, but she's just the epitome of fire and determination. A total boss babe, and not afraid of what anyone thinks of her. I care too much. I could never confront someone about something. You brought me the wrong food at this restaurant. I can't say anything. I'm just gonna eat it. I'm not gonna send it back to the kitchen. I would never. So, yeah, I just think stepping into Aelyn's shoes just means experiencing the raw, world-shaping power of magic while navigating the intricate politics and betrayals of her world, which is way too extreme for me to ever endure. So, her journey is just full of heartbreak and sacrifice, and it's also filled with, like, all this triumph and unyielding will to protect those she loves, and plus, the opportunity to call Rowan Whitethorn my mate. Sign me up. Like, we love our fictional men. Like, come on.
Yes.
Line up for me.
And then speaking of Aelyn, what do you think she would be like in modern times? Or I guess I wonder, what do you think she would be like in Crescent City? Because Crescent City is that modern time. So, like, what would she be like?
Well, I think everyone would hate her. Honestly. Like, everyone would hate Aelyn. Like,
I think everyone would hate her or want to be her.
Yes,
honestly.
I agree. And, like, just because, typically women, if they are confrontational or they speak up for themselves, they're, like, seen as a bitch.
Yeah.
No one's gonna like you if you say these things that you're against out loud. You want to send your food back to the kitchen? I don't really like you. You know, I don't think you're a good person. If a girl does that, it's like, and then, normally if a guy does that, oh, he knows what he wants. Okay, I want to be your friend. So, double standards. I could go on and on all day. I'm a psychology girl. I got a degree in it. But yeah, so I think she'd be just some high-powered CEO, fierce attorney, or an activist, and she would just command respect, and she would have this gold sports car and a penthouse full of all her fancy dresses and books. She loved her dresses in, like, the first book, but, like, we might have heard a little bit about it later in the series, but I feel like Sarah J. Maas kind of, like, forgot about it. I mean, other things were going on, like, the world was ending, but, like, girl, she, like, that was everything to her in the first book, was all these, like, pretty dresses. But I guess that comes with, like, as an author, you're growing up and there's bigger things to worry about too, other than what you're wearing. So anyways, I think she would definitely be the friend you'd want to have to, like, stand up for you.
Yes.
Especially, like, I'm not gonna stand up for myself if I have a friend to do it for me, so heck yeah. But she'd be hosting all these crazy parties and just outsmarting everyone. And yeah, I think Rowan would just be her equally intense partner, just kind of like bodyguard all the time. Like, yeah, babe, let's do it. Like, constant, like, never say no to her. She's like, I got you. I'll get it done. But yeah, I think she would definitely thrive in any modern day arena. So Go Aelin. I don't think we would be friends, but you would scare me. I would be very intimidated.
Right. No, I agree with everything that McCayleigh just said. Aelin would be unstoppable. She is so smart and she's determined. She knows what she wants. She would thrive in honestly any sort of leadership role, whether that's running her own business, advocating for change, or like being a force on social media. I could see her totally like being the new it girl on Instagram or TikTok. Yes. So hopefully, fingers crossed, if she gets into Crescent City, we'll see more. But imagine Aelin now with like a cell phone.
Dude,
that's crazy.
She'd be using that thing all the time, hitting everyone up. I would love to see that. Imagine just like the next Crescent City book comes out and this girl with blonde hair steps out of her gold sports car on the phone, and then we're all the audience and readers are like, no way, like, oh my god. And it turns out she transported, and you know, we didn't find out until this book that it happened. I don't know, something crazy. I wish it would happen, but I hope she does something crazy. I'm excited for the next ACOTAR and Crescent City book.
Yeah,
I need it to happen. But yes. So, with all that being said, which Throne of Glass character would make the best friend in real life?
This one was hard too because everyone in Aelin's sort of inner circle is so loyal. But I think the best one to have would be Lysandra. She is the one with the shape-shifting power. You know, her and Aelin have kind of had like this really bad backstory together of Lysandra kind of being a mean girl to Aelin. But it turns out they're actually fierce best friends. And she is always there when you need her, and she is always true to herself, which is pretty inspiring. She also is pretty funny in the books, so I think that just hanging out with her would just be so fun.
Yeah, I did like Lysandra, and like hearing her story about, you know, kind of protecting the little girl by slashing her face. Like, that was the moment that hit me. I'm like, she's a good person. Like, that's the first part that everyone reads and is like, oh wait, she's a good guy, instead of like.
And what's also really sad about Lysandra's story is that when all the magic left, she was shapeshifted into this beautiful woman, and she stayed this beautiful woman until magic came back, and she did not remember what she looked like before. I was just like crying. I was like, that is so sad. Imagine not remembering what you actually look like.
Yeah.
So sad.
That is so sad. And like the job she was like stuck doing, I'm like, oh, but gosh, but she's a good person and I'm glad. But for me, if I had to pick a friend, I'd pick Mr. Dorian, my majesty. I think he'd make such a great friend. We got sugar daddy material. He will be the friend who like buys me everything, and I won't have to spend any money. So, anyways, but on a more...
Because, like, I am just here for your money, like, buy me everything. I
mean, why wouldn't you pick a prince, bro? Like, you might have a great personality. That's a plus, right? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not that shallow. Or am I? Anyways... JK. Anyways, he's charming, you know, witty and intelligent, and he's perfect for like all these deep conversations and lighthearted banter. And I mean, he really stood up for Selena or Alyn, but when he was speaking to Kale about, you know, which parts to love about her, you have to love all of her or not at all. And I just think his love for books just means endless recommendations and discussions, kind of like our relationship. Like I always am like, let me check Kaylee's Goodreads today, and there's always a new review somewhere about something. So I think his empathetic nature makes him someone who truly listens and supports you, despite his royal background, which is, you know, still a plus for me. But he's humble and down to earth and just always puts his friends first. And I mean, who wouldn't want a bestie with magical powers who could, you know, casually make a life a little easier? So I think his blend of kindness and humor and loyalty would make him just an amazing lifelong friend. So
yeah. Well, speaking of Dorian, this is kind of a thought-provoking question, which I was stuck on forever. But what would have happened if he died? Like, that would have changed everything. No. Things would have gotten crazy so quick. His death would have left just a huge void in Kale and Aelyn's life. and also the rest of, their little ragtag crew,
Mm-hmm.
making the fight against Maeve and Erewhon even more intense. He has, this connection to magic, and he has the ability to control the word marks. It played such a big, crucial role in the series as a whole, so losing him would have been a major setback. The stakes would have been way higher. The group would have had to scramble to fill the gap that he left behind. It makes you think that if he had died, Aelin probably would have died also.
Yeah, he was so helpful. So
yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with everything there, and like, I think the book, like, depending on when he would have died, the book would have been like so like less interesting had there not been like Manon and Dorian romance involved.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I think because like there's our enemies and lovers aspect. That's what it is. Like that's the part we love so much, and that's where they threw it in. So if he had died, I think it would have devastated everyone. I don't know how they would have come back from that. Like, maybe angry.
Yeah.
Like, maybe, oh, we're so angry now, let's, beat up this guy. But, I mean, in reality, they still might have not been strong enough, especially now that they were without Dorian's magic. Like, how would they have sealed the word gate, by the end of it all? Like, I don't know. I mean, he and Aelin went into their little circle right before she dropped through all the worlds. Like, they did that together. How, I don't know.
And if he wasn't there, she probably would have died.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Yeah, like, it wouldn't have been the same story. It would have been a different story. I mean, for Sarah J. Maas would not have put a bad ending to it. Like, everyone would have, survived, but the story would have been a lot different. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I also think that Manon, her attachment to this group was it had a lot to do with Dorian's affection towards her. So I think her emotional growth, like, to these humans, I think it would have been stalled, and it would have really prevented, like, all of her team of witches unification, and I just overall think his absence would have just left this huge major void and just altered the entire story. And so I'm glad he didn't die.
He plays such a, when you really get down to the nitty gritty of this story, he is a part of everything, and without Dorian being there, especially like you just said, without Manon and her relationship with the 13, it just makes my mind explode, because nothing would have happened. They would have died. I know they would have died. Like, what are you going to do without Dorian? He did so much.
I know. That's insane. But what a more appropriate way to give you a Throne of Glass quiz now. Like, Throne of Glass quiz. So this is a character quiz. We're gonna find out which character from Throne of Glass you resemble most. I know who you want it to be. I know who you said you thought you were, which I disagree. So we're actually gonna get down to the nitty gritty and figure this out. So I have 5 questions, multiple choice. You let me know which answer tickles your fancy, and we will figure out who you are. All right.
Okay.
So, how do you usually handle conflict? You face it head on and fight for what you believe in. You try to talk things out and find a peaceful solution. Keep your emotions in check and observe before acting. Or prefer to work behind the scenes and let others lead the charge.
Like to talk things out. I'm like, I need to know what everyone thinks about this issue. Let's all talk about it, and then let's argue about it.
No, let's argue about it after. No, I cannot make a decision by myself ever. And Christian gets so mad because I always ask him, what do you think? What do you think? And then if he says something I don't like, and then he's like, why did you even ask me if you're not? I'm like, I just had to hear you say it out loud.
Yeah.
Okay, so what motivates you the most? Protecting those you love and standing up for what's right, learning and growing to become a better version of yourself, the thrill of adventure and embracing the unknown, or seeking justice and making things right no matter the cost.
Probably learning and growing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, that's very wholesome. I love that.
Everything else just sounds so intense for me.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I agree. It's intense for me too. All right. So, which of these qualities best describes you? Fierce and passionate, loyal and compassionate, strong and independent, calculating and determined.
God. I am loyal and compassionate.
I think I would choose that too. Oh, God, you've chosen the same letter. And
Really?
like each time. So I can't remember who's on the list, but you're most like them. Also, guys, I forgot to mention, this quiz you can take with us on our Instagram or Facebook. So please do. We love hearing your responses.
Yes.
So go for it. Let us know who you got. All right, Haley. And for our fourth question, how do you prefer to spend your free time? Training or improving your skills for battle? Spending, right, because we're going to war tomorrow. Spending time with friends and family, helping others, exploring new places or seeking out new experiences, or working on a personal project or solving problems.
I feel like the personal one. I work on more personal things for me.
Sweet. I did not think you were going to choose that one.
What did you think I was going to say?
Spending time with friends and family?
Yeah, that was my second one.
Okay, because had you chose that one, it would have been the same letter for the fourth time in a row. And I was like, dude, if she chooses that. Okay. So if you had a magical power, what would it be? Fire manipulation, control over flames and destruction, healing magic, helping others and mending wounds, shape-shifting, transforming into different creatures, or shadow manipulation, being able to control the dark.
Oh my gosh, I can be my own shadow daddy? Is that what you're
You
saying?
can be your own, you'll never need anyone else ever?
Exactly, that's what I'll pick, shadows.
Peter Pan who? Oh my god. Anyways, is that the one you chose?
Yeah, shadows.
Okay. Alright, so you are Lysandra! That is who you're
Gosh.
most like. Yes, you're compassionate and loyal, always looking out for the ones you love. Like Lysandra, you have a warm heart and are willing to put others before yourself. Your strength lies in your unwavering loyalty and ability to adapt to any situation. So, yeah, you
love her.
3 out of 5 times you chose Lysandra's choice. And then the other 2 times you chose were for Kale.
Oh my god, no.
I was like, uh-oh, but...
Oh my god, that's horrible.
But you didn't get him, though, so we're good. And then your other options could have been, like, Alyn or Manon. And you didn't choose any of their answers.
They're too intense for me.
They are very intense. In different ways, too. Like,
yeah.
One's gonna, like, pull out your spine, and the other is just, gonna burn you alive.
Well, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode of Two Chicks and a Plot Twist. We hope that you enjoyed hearing our thoughts about our Throne of Glass breakdown. And if there's anything that we missed, or if there's anything that you really loved, we would love to hear your thoughts about this episode. So send us a message or a comment on our socials.
Yes, thank you guys so much for listening and supporting us. If you're interested in being a guest on our podcast, check out our Instagram or Facebook page at Two Chicks and a Plot Twist. There is a sign-up form in our Linktree. From our Linktree, you can also visit our brand new website and sign up for our email newsletter.
That's right, guys. And if you want to, you can follow me on my Instagram. It's at Haleys.books.
And you can follow me on Instagram at McCayleigh Daniels.
Join us for our next episode. We are doing a breakdown of another Sarah J. Maas series, A Court of Thorns and Roses. We are so excited and we can't wait for y'all to listen.
Yes, and you can expect a podcast episode from us every Thursday. So see you next time. Bye.
Bye.